Hey guys, welcome once again to Prepper Talk Radio. I am Scott. You've got Shane and Paris in the house. Hello, my friends. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Scott. Good day.
Good day. Well,
Good day.
every day is a good day if you want it to be.
Especially every day above ground.
Absolutely. Well, as a reminder for everybody, if you want to stay in touch with us, we want to stay in touch with you. So make sure you're following us on all of our social media, especially Facebook, because we've got a special group in there. We've also got on our website, preppertalkradio.com, links to some of our favorite gear, and we've got our resource page up. So if you're looking for books we actually have and recommend, those are listed now on our website. You can click on it and go directly and buy those from, I think Amazon is where we've linked them to. Also, Ready Hour is one of the food products we recommend. We're linked on there on our website. You can check it out, My Patriot Supply, linked on our Gear We Like page, as well as some of the other cool products we know and love. Now, without further ado, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. And by the elephant in the room, I mean the donkey in the White House.
Which
this
elephant?
Dude,
To be polite, right?
to be polite, well, he's a Democrat, so I can say donkey, and it's not. Yeah. I'm not demeaning anybody by saying that. I hope you're not taking offense, listeners. But basically, what I want to point out is we've got a guy that just let the worst cyber attacker we've ever dealt with as a country, who happens to be a Russian cyber attacker, let him out of prison like 6-7 months ago. And so then today has the nerve to go on the news and be like, hey, everybody, look here, bud. Cyber attack's a problem now. So watch out. Good luck and stuff. Hope you're okay. And oh, by the way, everybody needs to switch to electric vehicles. I'm like, wait a minute. Cyber attacks freed. You want everyone to move to electric vehicles. You're taking away all the coal and the oil and everything else. So there's nothing to power the vehicles. And then the cyber attack guy is out and available. And what if he takes down sections of the grid?
Oh, and by the way,
kidding me?
The darkest days are ahead of us still. You know, that came out of his mouth. That's pretty incredible.
The man with the plan is to destroy everything and replace it with the whole one world order. So it's just absolute ridiculousness. And I want to hear your take on it. I mean,
I was listening.
I'm kind of beside myself. So yeah.
Well, I was listening to a thing. I think we can maybe share the screen here in a minute, but I was listening to a recording by Jim Jordan, and where he was going off saying, look, you guys literally are claiming that there's going to be a cyber attack coming. And you just let the guy who's the number one hacker, cyber attacker for Russia go from apparently he was in, I don't know where he was, but he was in our control, and they let him go. And Jim Jordan's like, what did we get for that? What do we get in return for that? And number one, number two, he's like, and where's our Department of Justice? Oh yeah, that's right. They're tagging moms and dads at parent-teacher conferences and school board meetings. So they're not even worried. Like, we're the number one threat we're supposed to be aware of, according to Biden recently, is the cyber attack from Russia. He let the guy go, who's probably like, no wonder. Like, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's why he knows there's going to be a cyber attack, because he just let the guy go who's going to do it.
It's not just incompetence, if you ask me.
It's planned. Well, here's a crazy theory that actually a TikToker shared with me yesterday on our TikTok thread. I was talking about cyber attacks. He responded with, well, I think what's going to happen is now that Hunter Biden's laptop's out, they're going to start cyber attacking to make it so they can't find it again. Like, eliminate that threat, eliminate the threat of our government, everyone knowing for sure what's going on. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Take down portions of the grid or whatever they need to do to eliminate that. I mean, cyber attacks, a lot of people worry about the grid as the number one issue with it, right? That's my biggest concern. I think the more plausible concerns are they could take out our banking, right? And it doesn't have to be the whole network. Just a couple of the different banks go down, and those people are screwed for a little while, right? If they can take down accounts for different groups. In 2016, I think, or 2014, one of the best hackers that I've heard of was 16-year-old kid in the UK. Did you guys ever hear about that kid? He just got put in jail in 2018. Well, he was in jail the whole time, but he just got convicted in 2018. So dang. He got into the CIA, he got into the IRS, and he got into one other 3-lettered organization. And I'm like, dude, you're 16. And what's crazy is they kept saying they thought it was bots, but it was the kid typing so fast. They've never seen a person type that fast and maneuver around everything they were trying to put up.
Wow.
I'm like, you don't have to worry for me because I can't even type correctly, let alone fast. And so, I'm not a threat, but like, what are people doing? Like, that's those types of things where it could just be some jackwagon out there having a good time thinking this is hilarious. And he could turn off somebody's banking. He could turn off access to everybody's Gmail, right? He could turn off access to everybody's Amazon accounts or hack Amazon. And all of a sudden everyone's getting weird stuff shipped to them and Amazon's not making any money and we're all happy, right? But who knows? I don't know.
And,
but there's so many different things that could happen with cyber attacks. And
there's plenty of speculation that there are backdoors built into all these software systems that the government use, and even into our system, our PCs and even TVs and everything we use, that there are backdoors that they could be easily hacked. It's already built in. So yeah, as part of the cyber attack, the company I work for was hacked beginning of last year. So we were down for almost a week. Emails and everything I use to do my business on, quotations and everything. And it was kind of a nice little break. I wasn't able to do anything, right? Couldn't make any sales or anything like that. And we did a lot of things with paper. So, and we've come from, when I first started with the company, we were doing a lot with paper. We were just barely getting onto all online, and now everything is online. So, most companies are online, and that's where I think the big problem is if you don't have a backup way to run your business, you're going to go downhill really quick. But like you said, Scott, is that the biggest concern for me with the cyber attack is taking the grid down. I would look forward to it. It's like being a kid, power goes out, yay, pull the flashlights out, when we all get together and have a good time. But when it comes to trying to do your work, so many people working paycheck to paycheck or living paycheck to paycheck. If they can't work for a couple of days, man, their budget is out the window, to put it mildly. And so that's my biggest concern is the grid going down for an extended period of time.
Well, what's crazy is 58% of small businesses, if they're hit with a cyber attack, it will end their business. Because they don't have systems in place to be able to stop things. And I think that's where a lot of people think cyber attack, big, huge things. It's like all the little things are super destructive. Like you're not just ending a small business, you're ending like income for a bunch of little families, like completely devastating those families. And if it's if it's a wide enough spread where it affects like 20,000 businesses,
even how fragile our financial system is right now, if just all these little pieces that are coming apart, they're falling apart, and that's, I think, part of the plan. If you look at the picture as a whole, you can see every little place where they're attacking here and there, which don't seem to connect, but they all add up into one aggregate that they are damaging our financial condition, our economy, GDP, whatever you want to call it, but it all adds up, and it can be difficult to see.
Yep. Another big thing is you mentioned earlier, Scott, about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I was listening to a Senator Gates going off on the FBI head of cyber, and they asked him this question: "Do you know where the Hunter Biden laptop is?" And the guy was like, "I'm not, I don't, that's not in my purview, my responsibility to know where that laptop is." And I'm just thinking to myself, if the FBI doesn't know where it is and it's not in their purview, what the heck is in their purview? But to Shane's point, that, you start getting some of these things going and you start seeing some of the internal battles that this could create. Like cyber attacks could literally create. One of the things that we've seen just was I don't want to get into all the details of the election, but if the election swung one way or the other, I mean, how much internal strife do we have in America right now trying to figure out what was really going on in that election? And that was all supposedly part of that was that whole attack, that digital attack, that cyber attack. So cyber attacks can bring the grid down. Cyber attacks can destroy businesses, which will destroy our economy. And cyber attacks can pit people against each other. And that pitting of people against each other is what creates a civil war potentially. And I mean, nowhere in the history, the last civil war that we had was based on some of the same things that I'm seeing in society today. And we didn't have digital. The last one didn't have all the sophistication we have. So I'm like, either it's going to get worse and it's going to be worse, or we're going to somehow figure it out and not have to jump into it. But at the same time, either way, we need to be ready. We need to be ready for whichever way it goes.
And I think with the temperament of society today, people are just so fragile. Like in the scriptures say, men's heart will fail them. Right? There's no compassion one towards another, or very little in society right now. And it's been planned to make this happen, right? The New World Order, the governments are trying to make this happen so that they can force and lobby and control and depopulate. So understanding those things, now we have to, wind it back a bit and say, okay, what do we do for my family? Number one, don't put everything digital. Like you've got to have backups. That's why we've been talking about books so much on our social media in last conversations. Like books, get hard copies of everything. Print off your binder worth of information, all the recipes you used, all the instructions you need, engineering books, mechanical books, repair books. I've got a whole stack over here. Books on any type of thing that you might need to know. I need to get some electrical books, understanding electrical, understanding solar, understanding how to put all that together, because right now I just don't understand that enough. That's why I lean on Shane for a lot of that, because that's an area he's studied. So we need to make sure we print off everything we need. We need to make sure we have physical copies of all of our asset classes, right? Our credit cards, our debit cards, our investments, whatever they may be, because if something goes down and we can't access that for a week or two or a month, we need to verify that when it comes back up, it's the same that was when we last saw it.
And Scott, here's something that I did in a couple of years ago is I remember, around my house having a set of encyclopedias, right? And that used to, there used to be the encyclopedia salesman. They go to door, and they would want you to buy a set every single year of each revision of encyclopedias. And they were crazy expensive, right? I went and found one of my birth year, 1972, World Book, got that sucker, stuck it on a shelf. And I figured that the older it is, probably the better and more accurate they would be, rather than trying to get a more updated version. I'm not sure if 72 is old enough to get, a lot of manipulation and change out of our books, but I think I need to go back a little bit further. But I thought that was kind of fun for me to get that birth year of encyclopedias and such.
That's
awesome.
Really cool. That's awesome.
I remember when the guy came to our door, my parents were like, yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. And he gave us A. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'll be back in a week. And, all that.
For like $50, right? I mean, just a crazy expensive
book. No,
he
gave us A. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, hey, you guys, because so-and-so bought one up the street, we're giving this one away too. Mm-hmm. You guys want a copy? We're like, sweet, this is exciting. And he comes back a week later to try to close the sale. And my parents handed the book back. They're like, no, we can't afford it. It was like $3,000. Mm-hmm. Like, it was crazy. I'm like, and this is like 1989, 1990. I'm like, holy crud.
Yeah, I think I spent $50 or $100 for that whole set.
Right? Garage sales is where you find those now. Like,
seriously.
And that's the place to go. Like, we've got to get people going back to garage sales. We've got to get people going back to thrift shops. Like, you can find so many good books in thrift stores.
Yeah, and
like
that's
instructions.
That's part of one of my biggest concerns that we'll get to, I think, toward the end, is that everybody I know, they're going away from everything printed. They have no more no more DVDs. They've gotten rid of their DVDs or their VHS tapes. I still have VHS tapes. I should probably get rid of them, but I've still got those. I got a VCR right here, but they're going away from. They're going everything digital, right? They got to download everything onto their computers or devices. They have nothing tangible, nothing physical. Where they're going to regret that, I think, especially obviously Grid Down. They're not going to have access to any of this stuff. Where me, I'll be watching my DVDs and VHS tapes, just like normal. That's awesome. There's no new normal for me. It's all the old normal.
Yeah,
there you go.
You'll be able.
You're acting like you're already off grid.
That's right. That's right. So I don't have to change much.
That's super awesome.
Well, I think with that in mind, like understanding how fragile society is right now, how fragile systems are right now, having something stronger in the back pocket or getting used to using it is a lot better. Like I'm trying to get my kids used to using a DVD player, and they're like, "Well, no, just push on, just point at the TV and change this, and you can stream." They're used to is streaming. Mm-hmm. So it's like turn that off, and then they don't know what to do. They're like, Dad.
Yeah, show them a vinyl record, and then they'll flip out. What the heck is this?
Oh, they've seen that. I think it's cool. It's it's the soundtrack to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice on vinyl.
It's awesome on vinyl.
Nice.
I love it.
That's something we did as well for this last Christmas. We got ourselves a record player, and it has a cassette player on it. And we've got my parents' old vinyl records, and we've been listening to them. And it's I like nostalgia. As I'm getting older, I appreciate it more and more.
It was super funny. A few years ago, we were moving out of from one house to another. We were getting rid of some stuff, and I had a box of floppy disks. And my son was like, "Dad, what in the heck are these?" And I was like, "They're 3.5, discs for a computer. You put them in, and that's how you get your information, transfer your information."
You remember the 7-inch ones?
And that was those at 3.5 were the next generation. That was like the upgrade from the old black ones with the hole in the middle, and they were so floppy you had to be careful not to touch it, or else it would ruin the whole data or whatever. I mean, it's just amazing to me how much the new generation doesn't have a clue or remember or even have any experience with any of that stuff. It's crazy.
And now they see these micro SD cards that are multiple terabytes on a micro right? SD. And my first computer was 16 megabytes, right, of memory. No, 16K. I mean, absolutely tiny compared to what we have now.
Well, and honestly, if you get, I was just going to say, if you get a card like that, a thumb drive or a terabyte card, and you back up stuff to it, and then you have like your phone or maybe some small device like a laptop with a solar power, way to charge it. That's actually, I mean, it's not ideal, but if above buying all these books and having bookshelves in your house now, that's the next best thing I would say is you download stuff to those things that you could then access through smaller laptops and computers that are easily charged by solar panels that you can get. I had a solar charger that could charge my laptop easily. And so you can do some things like that and still kind of stay relatively digital.
Yep. I have multiple separate hard drives that I back everything up onto. So those are easily put into a pouch, right? A little Faraday cage and protected along with a laptop. And then you got some normalcy that way.
Awesome. Now, Paris, you were going to show us a clip.
Well, I'm not necessarily, I don't necessarily want to play the clip, but I want to show the screen anyway, so you guys can access it if you want to. But real fast, this particular clip here is that clip of Jim Jordan. And I'm going to share it to our Prepper Talk Radio Facebook page. But this is Jim Jordan going off on the fact that the Biden administration just said that there's going to be a cyber attack in Russia, or from Russia, I should say, and that they just let the guy go who was the #1 cyber attack, cyber hacker from Russia. They let him go 6 months previous to this particular video. So I think that's a video we'll share on our page if you want to go see that. For those of you that are watching or listening only, you'll see this on our YouTube channel, but you can also go jump to our Facebook page where you'll see that share there. The other thing is this one over here where Glenn Beck goes through a whole bunch of information about the digital dollar. And quite honestly, I don't know if you guys saw this either, but Biden just put together an executive order where he said something along the lines of, we need to look into digital currencies and making the Fed the Fed have a version of a digital currency that we're going to move forward with, because he was worried and concerned about some of these countries, that we're sanctioning right now, going through backdoor ways to continue to transact business using cryptocurrencies. And so now they're getting into being able to create a digital dollar that they can control more easily. And anytime there's a control more easily type of a theme, I'm not interested. I want to be controlled more interest. And if you see really quickly here, you might recognize somebody over here. It says Paris Clough just did a video. So what was crazy is I have a financial channel where I talk about financial self-reliance, and I did a video about the war on cash that's going on right now. So if you want to go check that out, Financial Self-Reliance is my YouTube channel. And I did a war on cash video that talks about that. So lastly, just to kind of actually maybe as a segue into what we kind of want to talk about here in the next little few minutes, is this Ray Dalio video. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's got 8 million views on YouTube. And so it's doing really well. And it's called The Changing World Order, where it talks about world reserve currencies and the cycle of world reserve currencies for the last 500 years, and how world reserve currencies have changed as countries have risen in power and then declined in power. And he shares with us in that video some significant evidence that the dollar is declining, and the Chinese government is coming up really strong as the next potential world reserve currency. And that if that happens, just telling you, our economy is going to go the wrong direction really fast.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really significant about this video is Ray Dalio is a former hedge fund manager. I mean, he's a mainstream kind of guy who lived in the banking system for many decades. And for him to put out this type of information is really quite significant, because you think what we see every day, and it's like these world leaders and central banks and such have no idea what they're doing. This seems like they have no idea what they're doing. But if Ray Dalio knows this stuff, these guys know this as well, and which tells me that what they're doing is on purpose. Why would any particular individual like you or me or families go into so much debt that on purpose that we cannot even service it? We have our issues, we have our emergencies we've got to take care of, right? And that happens to most everybody. But it's quite obvious that our government, our banks, the Federal Reserve is doing these things on purpose. I would like to think that they're ignorant and that they don't know these things. But if Ray Dalio knows these things, they know it as well, and which tells me everything is planned and on purpose. And that and just like Glenn Beck says in his specials as well, I listen to Glenn on a regular basis. Not that I agree with a lot of things he says. He's still, I think, parrots a lot of mainstream stuff, which is propaganda. But they know what they're doing, and absolutely. So that's another reason we need to be even better prepared, is because their purposes are nefarious and for their own good, not ours.
And if you look at, there's a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
I was going to bring that up too, Scott. Thank you.
Blows the door. I mean, Ray Dalio, everything he's saying is matching up with this book.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that they talk about in the book is they create economic situations where they have to force inflation. And when inflation goes crazy, and they do this country by country a lot of times, and they'll force inflation on this country, and then they'll bail them out. And then they'll force inflation on another country, and they'll bail them out. And then when they do that, they intentionally replace their currency.
Well, that bailout is their buying, right? They're stepping up and they're taking control of that country's assets. So it's a form of slavery. They're putting that country into bondage, and they say, okay, to pay us off, give us your assets. Mm-hmm. They're buying. They create the money out of thin air, and then they're taking the assets.
Again, and then it forces inflation again on the country giving the money out.
Yep.
And so in this case, it's been the US dollar going everywhere, right? We would partner with NATO, and it's mostly the US money that's going out to pay for all the aid. Well, why? Because it's the easiest money to just inflate, or to print,
yep.
Right? To just flood the market with, because it's the petrodollars attached to the US economy right now. Well, as soon as they pull oil off the petrodollar, what else does the US have left? Right now it's inflating so fast, with
Well,
what Glenn Beck's saying, with what Ray Dalio is saying, with what Creature from Jekyll Island says, it's like we're coming to a point where there has to be an economic crash and a reset.
mhm.
And that to me leads into a new one world order approach.
Yeah, and we hear that being said. The Great Reset is, I mean, that's part of their plan, which is a financial reset. Reset is what it really is, but it's also a government reset. It's also taking control of the elites, taking control, and that's straying a little bit, I think, from our topic, but of kind of financial collapse being one of our biggest concerns, right after cyber attacks, right? Is that things are going to go cashless, like Paris was talking about. So go watch his video. The reduction or the loss of cash is a loss of privacy. And then with the new digital currencies, like Scott was saying, was going to come in, these are not going to be like a blockchain type of currency. And we need to differentiate money from currency. What the government prints is not money, it's currency. And these new central bank digital currencies are not going to be a blockchain type of currency or blockchain type of system, whereas like Bitcoin and many others are blockchain, and blockchain has a lot of uses. I don't believe in Bitcoin, but blockchain is quite a great technology, very useful, but theirs will be different.
It's a transparent system too.
Exactly.
So everybody can see where the dollars are. No more dollars can be created. No more dollars. None of them can be deleted. Right? The coins, the tokens, whatever. This is the set number.
Well, yeah,
because it's a digital wallet system that's open, that everyone can see it. The accountability is awesome. So government can't use it to be able to do their purposes because it's trackable. It's visible. They can't just create more on demand when they need to flood a market.
But also
their own currency that they can control. They got full go. They can. It's no different than what they're doing now with the fiat currency we have. It's just now 100% digital instead of a little bit paper.
Right, and it also will be. And sorry to interrupt you, Paris, but it will also be. It's their own system, so they will be able. It's programmable is the right word. It's programmable. So if they don't want you, let's say, oh, we don't want you buying coffee, they can get that specific. Or they'll be tracking our health, and they'll say you're a little overweight. You don't need to be buying this or that. They can say no. You can only spend so much amount at this location. We don't want you buying guns or ammo either with this money. They can even say, okay, by the end of the month, you got to have this all spent. Otherwise, it's going to expire. So there will be no transparency. They will track it and trace everything, and we will have no anonymity in our currency whatsoever.
I was just going to say that goes back to what Biden did with his executive order about trying to get back control of this digital currency, because they can't control crypto as it is right now, or at least Bitcoins and Ethereums, maybe some other ones too. They can't control it, so they're going to create their own, and they're going to make that the one thing that only everybody can use. And the things that you were talking about, Shane, are really. I think Glenn Beck did a really good job in that video. Explaining the very things that you just talked about in a little more detail. He goes into like 10 minutes. He goes on and he shares articles and other things that kind of really back it up. So if you are wanting to know more, go visit our Facebook page and look at that share from Glenn Beck and watch that video from him, because he's gonna in that video he does a really good job. And in the video that I did on that, I share a Forbes magazine article that was from 2016. And it says, the real reason for the war on cash, starting with big bills, is to have it is an ugly power grab by big government. That's what the article in Forbes magazine actually said, word for word. So the reality is that people know and have known for many, and that was 6 years ago. And just think about all the things that have happened since then in our financial world. I mean, they literally, thankfully, they kicked it out and it didn't go through, but they wanted to track every $600 transaction we had. I mean, imagine the IRS calling you up and say, you had 12 $600+ transactions. Well, yeah, that was my mortgage. I was paying my mortgage, bro.
And now the policy that did pass is $10,000.
Thank goodness.
In it, but no, there's no difference. There's no difference between $600 or $10,000 because it's based over a year. So who doesn't do $10,000 in a year? So that's the way these politicians work. They try and get something pretty extreme. 600, that's ridiculous. Okay, we'll do 10,000. Oh, okay, all right. what's the difference? It's all the same. They got what they wanted anyway, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing we got to watch out for, this creep. And that's one thing that's also concerning about the financial collapse of financial currencies, is that it's all about creep. It's all about taking more control. And so what this ultimately ends in is the mark of the beast, right? In Revelation is where this ultimately ends in. Whether we see in it right now, honestly, I don't really know, because it talks about, mark in the wrist, mark in the forehead. What that represents, I don't know. But that's where this is going. We can see that creep. We can see that movement toward complete control of our lives.
One of the
So
interesting
true.
things about Mark of the Beast, since we jumped into that topic, when you have a mark on the forehead, it is a symbol of the kingdom that you're attached to. A mark in the hand is a symbol of a promise that you're attached to. So now think of it this way. There are two kingdoms fighting. We know which one will win, God's. And we know which one will lose, Satan's. Satan's plan is to put everybody in bondage. And he's doing that through the one world government as one of his ways. Now, knowing that, understanding that, the mark of the beast, whether it's a physical mark, whether it's a tattoo with a barcode, whether it's a chip that's been inserted in your hand, it's a voluntary or involuntary connection to that kingdom, right? And there's a point in time where we're going to have to defect so that we can stay in the kingdom of God. We have to live in the world, but we don't have to be of it.
Amen.
And so
that's for me, my most important thing in my family's future is making sure that we stay close to God, because it doesn't matter the chaos going around us. We're told and commanded to be still so that we can feel peace. And we're commanded to follow Christ. And if we're following Christ, we will stand in holy places. And that's being still. Like, you don't have to subscribe to all the craziness. You don't have to subscribe to all the insanity. Like, I look at Joseph of the Old Testament. He had the interpretation given to him for the Pharaoh's dream of 7 years of tons and tons of food, and then 7 years of famine that's worse than anyone's seen. And so he told the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh's like, okay, you're in charge. Get us organized. Get the food and everything we need for the bad 7 years. Let's get it now. And we've been doing that most of our lives, trying to live by that same type of motto. We've gone through, in my family, horrible time for the last 3.5, 4 years. And guess what? We've been using our food storage. Everyone buys food storage thinking, I'm not going to use it for years. We buy our food storage knowing we're going to use it tomorrow.
Probably.
Right? It's a rotating system. Like, new goes to the back, the old goes to the front, and we keep using it. And it's a smarter way of life, so that I'm not worried about where the next meal is coming from.
Yeah, and of course, what comes to mind is, if you're prepared, you won't fear, right? You shall not fear. And so, one thing I want to make sure we don't leave out, we don't forget when we're talking about these concerns, is some solutions. How we prepare ourselves for this, right? We don't want to just say, "Oh, here's the things we're worried about. Good luck." I think the three of us, we figured out what we're doing, or how we can better prepare ourselves for these. We can't be 100% prepared in most cases, especially grid down. We can be minimally prepared, but like we had mentioned before, is live right now how you would live without those things. Like me still watching VHS tapes, right? For a stupid example, but for financial collapse, since that's kind of the topic we're on right now, is my recommendation as a solution is become your own bank. Separate yourself from the financial system as much as you can, because you can participate. I mean, you can participate, like you were saying, Scott, we don't want to participate in the mark of the beast, which means we have to be ready now so that we aren't compelled to be forced into that, or actually it will be like, yes, please save us, give me the mark so I can eat, right? We don't want to put ourselves in that situation. So we need to prepare now so that we can say, no, thank you. We are prepared. We'll go off, live in the wilderness, whatever, to not participate in this system. So obviously food storage, like you're saying, Scott, financially, yes, we can participate, but the word that comes to mind for me is hedge. We have to hedge our bets. We have to hedge our investments. We have to be prepared for when things turn the other way, and make that decision of when, okay, I'm heavily invested in the financial markets. I got to know when to get out. And that's super difficult.
And also be okay losing it all.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's where hedging comes in.
Right? That's what like if you've got all of your money in the market, or all your eggs in one basket, it's probably the easier term. If you've got all of your eggs in one basket and that basket gets yanked away, are you okay? Or is that going to destroy you? Not just physically, financially, and everything else, like mentally and emotionally, spiritually. Are you okay?
Yeah, I think we all know how hard it is to not have money and be in that situation every day for weeks and months on end. Yeah, we all know that. We've all been there.
Right. I still have my EBT card from back when I needed to have an EBT card.
Really? As kind of a memento?
It's my memento. It reminds me of where I come from, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why we do what we do. I mean, going through that kind of a trial, going through the financial fire, going through the economic fire of a household without, it hardens you against those challenges in the future. So it's not so difficult, right? And hardens meaning strengthens. Like, it strengthens you for the future. And it's like, knowing that it's a cycle and we all go through it multiple times, it prepares us for the next. And we're more resilient for the next. And that's why we prepare as best we can with what we have. So whatever your financial situation is, whatever your current life situation is, for you that are listening, like, know that you're not alone in it, and things will change. It can go better and it can go worse, but that's not the end of you. That's not the end of your story. Your story will go on, and those things that you're going through now and in the future will help you rise. And it will help you become better if you let it and if you work with it.
Yeah, here's something that's been on my mind is that, I always say, look to the past, prepare for the future. And so just like you're saying with Joseph, I think civilizations, people, even our grandparents who relied on their own gardens, who relied on their own farming in their own communities, they really relied on prayer. They relied on God to give them the rain they need, save their crops, like the early church here in Salt Lake in Utah, where the crickets were devouring the crops. They relied on their Heavenly Father to save them. What are we relying on? We're relying on our next paycheck. We're relying on the food security, food system, the transportation system, the supply chain, which we'll talk about next. But are we relying on God enough? Or are we relying on man? Whereas if we're planting our own crops, I mean, that's about as close as you can get to relying on God, I think, right? We need the rain. I need to find the fertilizer. I gotta fertilize my crops, those types of things. And so again, looking to the past, and preparing for that, living a more simple lifestyle, making those changes now is the biggest things on my mind is, at the moment.
Yeah, let me share my screen again real quick. And this is something that goes right along with what you're talking about. This is a screen share on Facebook again, and we'll share this on our Facebook as well for those of you who are listening so you can read this. But one of the companies we actually just got, we really support or behind is called My Patriot Supply. They have a great resources there and availability, and we got some resources available, links in on our website. Sorry, and they put out a link here that was a recent thing by Charles Schwab. Pardon me, not Charles Schwab. Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab.
They were probably related. It says here, and I'll read this, and you can go and read it on our Facebook page when we share it. It says, at the World Government Summit yesterday, Klaus Schwab said, history is truly at a turning point with economic instability, conflict between major global powers, and the coming fourth industrial revolution. There will be systemic and structural changes, and that global supply chains, energy, and food systems will be deeply affected. Another video I watched recently was the End of Nations over at the High Wire, and we'll share that too. He basically goes through the point where in the next few years, we may have to go back to those more simple times, those more simple ways of living. where we're
Mhm.
not relying on the ability to just place an order online and have it shipped to our house, where we actually have to kind of coordinate with our community and find out who's a carpenter and who's an electrician, and work together in our communities, because we may not have that kind of opportunity in our communities. But I want to just, I want to say one more thing, and then I'll let you turn back over to you guys. But I was just thinking this last couple of weeks as we've been talking about preparing and getting your food storage and getting everything ready for 3-month supplies, 90-day supplies, 1-week supplies, all these things. And I thought to myself, what is the single mom or dad out there, or the single person, or the person who's just barely scraping by? Maybe they're married and they have several kids and they just don't have, they're barely scraping by. What do they do? And it goes back to what we just were talking about right before I had the screen share, is rely on God. If you get good with God and you get strong with God, and he'll guide you and direct you. One of the crazy things that I've had in my life happen several times is that there's been people, I had situations where I was struggling. I didn't have it. I didn't have the money. I didn't have what I needed I had kids to feed, and I didn't have it. And I would pray and I'd say, God, you know what we need. And I can't do it. And somebody knock on the door with a bag of food, or I'd be told to go visit so-and-so, and we go visit their house, and they're like, hey, why don't you come in for dinner? And before I know it, my family's fed. I get what I need. I get a check in the mail from somebody who felt prompted to send me a check for some money. I mean, the reality of God giving us and being aware of our needs is so real to me. I can't deny it, number one, and nobody will convince me that it doesn't work, that God's not part of this whole process. So if you're struggling, like, I don't have money, I don't have what I need, get good with God and he'll guide you and direct you. He'll lead you paths. He'll take you where you need to go. He'll introduce you to people that do have enough and plenty and can share and will share. So if you're out there struggling, get good with God and he'll guide and direct you. And so that's my 2 cents.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Get over to the food pantries. Like, there are so many neat resources around that you can find ways to get what you need now, but also it'll help you expand for the future. If you need to go to multiple food pantries to get stuff, do it. Get with, WIC or the other different services that are available to your town, like to your city, to get the resources to help your family. And my favorite, potatoes. You can grow a ton of potatoes in 5-gallon buckets. Go to the store, buy some potatoes, put them in a dark place, let them start sprouting, cut them into fourths if you can, right? And then make sure you dry those out for a few days. And guess what? Now you're ready to start growing potatoes. Taters, right? And potatoes, like, I'm from Idaho. You know what saved my family year after year after year? Like, generationally? Potatoes. Like, my first grandparents, well, on the Stalling side, my great grandmother, she left her husband and took her 3 kids and moved into a hole that she dug out of the side of a hill. And they planted potatoes on the top of the hill. And that's how they survived, in a dugout. So cool. They put, as they could get it, they would put more and more wood in the sides of that dugout until it was more structurally sound, and they had a wall, and then they built a cabin later as the boys got older. And that is my heritage. Like, potatoes saved us. And when my dad was struggling financially and my mom was struggling with work and health, you know what saved us? Potatoes. We had boxes, like crates of potatoes in the basement. And my dad and my mom, like, we'd do a garden every year, and we had our food storage and everything else. But like, my grandpa and grandma, every time they'd come visit from Idaho, guess what they'd bring?
Potatoes.
Big old bag of potatoes.
60 pounds of potatoes, 2 30-pound bags. Like, that's saved us time after time. Like, and potatoes are cheap. So if you don't have anything else to do, if you live in an apartment, but you can get a bag of potatoes, eat half and put the other half out, like, put them in a dark place, root them. Then once they're rooted, cut them up. Like, there's YouTube videos that explain how to do this process, and just go put them in a 5-gallon bucket with some soil, and they'll grow. Water them and they'll grow, and you'll have too many potatoes later on. You won't know what to do with all the potatoes you could get out of that. And then you take some, set them aside, do the same thing. And guess what? Wintertime, you can grow them inside. Get a grow light on top of them. Like you can grow them pretty much anywhere. They're potatoes. They're robust. They're tough. They're awesome. I need to make a shirt that says "Potato saved my life." Like, guys, prepping, self-reliance. There's so many ways to go around it. And when we say self-reliance, I think that's a misnomer. Like it's saying, "Hey, I can save myself."
Mhm.
You can't. It's relying on the Lord, but also trusting yourself to rely on the Lord. Trusting yourself that you're taking the right steps. And historically, they've always been the right steps. We've just recently, as a society, forgotten the steps.
Mhm.
And we've gotten away from that. And so we've got to go back to that because that's, as Shane says, look to the past to prepare for the future. And we can take those things that the past did very well and apply them to our day, and it'll help us up a rung higher in our current situation.
Self-sufficiency is kind of like anti-entitlement, right? I mean, it's like you say, you can't truly be self-sufficient or you can't truly be self-reliant, but you can aim for it, and you can do your best to get there. But I know you're a big community guy, Scott. We need to rely on community. I tend to be a little more solitary, but
Yeah, you got like 80 kids, so you've got a community of your own.
Yeah.
Five.
Seems like 80.
But I got
They're everywhere.
seven, 6 other brothers and sisters. So yeah, we have community, and that's my plan for community. But one thing that came up in my mind when you were talking is if you guys aren't following Ice Age Farmer, you should. Do you guys know? Are you familiar with Ice Age Farmer? You guys, Scott?
I'm not.
I'm
Bears?
not.
Go watch Ice Age Farmer. He is fantastic. He tells what is happening with the food supply system right now all over the world. One thing he brought up recently that I've been seeing, and it's kind of peripheral, is that these large companies are saying, oh, you know what? Oh, you can't save your own seeds. No, that's dangerous. You have to buy your seeds from an approved supplier, right? It's all mind control. It's propaganda. So they're trying to control everything, including food production, seeds, all that. So no, grow your own garden, keep your seeds for the next year. It has been proven that once you harvest your seeds from the previous crop, those seeds are learning about that soil. And the next time you plant it, they will do better. And those seeds have learned more from that soil in those growing conditions, whether it's dry or whether it's overly wet or whatever. And then you keep doing that crop keeps continuing to get better. And that's been proven. And really Christian
cool.
over there at Ice Age Farmer talks all about that. So follow him. He's fantastic.
Shane, can you throw that up on our Facebook page?
Yeah,
And
I'll do that.
in our group and make sure we share that. That's a
Yep.
huge, that's awesome. I'm gonna go subscribe to that and start watching that.
Ice Age Farmer. Yep.
I think that's, as we look back and we start understanding the things that we can do, and it just helps us get through the things that are coming. Like we've talked about cyber attacks, we've talked about issues with the grid. I mean, we're going to have supply chain problems. They're announcing it all over the world. Oh, we're going to have a run on food. Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, One World Government Focus. Like he's trying, they want to disrupt supply chain. They've intentionally hurt it over the last few years, last decades, right? They've intentionally hurt our financial system. They're intentionally hurting all these things that we rely on just to get by.
Yeah, here's another thing that has been in the news in the alternative media lately is bird flu, right? There's a bird flu going all over the U.S. It hasn't quite got to the West here, but it's all through the Midwest. They're killing millions and millions of chickens and turkeys, I assume, as well, because they have this bird flu. But the thing is, they're using the same test they test for COVID that is a false test that does not work, is not accurate. The PCR test, they're using that same test to test these chickens and say, oh, they're sick. We gotta destroy them. So again, it's intentional. So it's nefarious. I like that word. That word works for me. And so
it fits.
It does. It fits perfectly. So get your house in order. Get your food in order. Like you're saying, potatoes are fantastic. You've got to look into how to store them, how to grow them, because you think that you've got to last through the winter, right? Got to learn how to can, how to bottle. Admittedly, I'm not very good at any of that stuff. Give me a freeze dryer, right? or just a dehydrator, right? That's easy to do, right? But the way our ancestors did the canning and the bottling and all that, that's an art that needs to be learned. And like you're saying, Scott, is planting potatoes. I tried that for a couple of years, didn't have great success. So it takes practice, and you got to get doing it now. It's not like say, okay, it's an emergency, we better get started. Got to start before the emergency. Yeah.
And there's so many resources you can find right now that'll help us with those things. We need to find them. If it's a YouTube video you like and you find it, download it, save it to your other hard drive, get it off your computer, right? Bookmark it on your computer, but get it off your computer. So, you've got a backup and it doesn't have to be connected to the network. So if things do go wonky, you've got those resources. And if it's printable, print them and put it in your binder. Like everyone should have a binder or multiple binders. Like I've got a gardening binder. I've got my preps binder. I've got my binder that has my entire, what would you call it?
Personal documents in there.
Well, that's not a binder. That's just a folder, and also on a little card. But then my storehouse, like everything, my wife is so good at tracking everything. Thank you. My inventory control. I have an inventory control binder. And I tell you, if I forget to mark off that something got moved from the basement to the pantry or the pantry to the table, like if I forgot, I get scolded. I don't like to get scolded. So I'm getting really good at marking off things. Oh, can of refried beans gone. Oh, bag of brown sugar removed. And you know what?
Awesome.
I actually helped. Today I realized. So the other day I was baking breadsticks and I was trying different recipes and I needed brown sugar. And I'm like, brown sugar's gone. Where's the brown sugar? My wife's like, well, it's in the pantry. And I'm thinking downstairs, not the pantry. And so I'm like looking around everywhere, didn't find it in the pantry because I didn't look in the pantry. I go downstairs and I get it. And I bring it up. And then today I'm like, I didn't do a good thing. This just illustrates how dumb I am sometimes. But I'm like in the pantry today and I'm like, hey, babe, here's brown sugar in the pantry. And she's like, yeah, I told you that's where it was in the mall. Oh, yeah, I'm an idiot. But we have it and she keeps track of it. And it's amazing. And we wouldn't have it had we not prepared 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Like we're using stuff that's 6 years old a lot of times. And it's perfectly fine. And you can store things for much, much longer with some oxygen absorbers and some, oxygen sealed bags. Like there's so many different things you can do. We just have to start doing them. And they're not expensive. They're not. We're kidding ourselves by saying they are. We're just prioritizing the wrong things in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now I know we're running up against our, we try to stay under. I think we could go on for another hour if we keep going at this pace too.
We need to do a super show. Just
we
10
do.
hours.
Might as well. But another thing that came to mind is we didn't really talk much about solutions for grid down, right? For having some power when the grid goes down. If you don't mind, I'll just hit a few of those things real quick here. Kind of going out of sequence here, but we talk about generators, gas generators, talk about solar power, wind power, those types of things. Again, I lean toward what I've been saying, look to the past, right? Try and change your life now so that you can do without a lot of power. Because, to power your big screen TV and electric heaters, all those types of things, it's not practical. It's way too expensive. So first of all, change how you live now so that you can get along with very little power. And then it can become very easy to power those things you need, like a radio, a TV for, those type of communication devices, be able to charge your phones, your flashlights, have rechargeable flashlights, have rechargeable devices that you can recharge from a solar bank. They call them solar generators. They're not solar generators. I hate that. The solar panel combined with the power box, whatever you want to call it, the
battery,
the battery where you store your energy. Battery bank, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. That you can maybe call a generator, but it's a silent generator. Anyway, it's a beef of mine.
Is the sun.
The generator's
the sun.
Absolutely,
we all have that. What we all need
is capture it,
energy collectors or
and
captures.
Store it exactly,
and storage devices. And it's funny because one of the websites I was looking at today actually called it all those things correctly.
Mhm.
And another one said, you need to get a generator. Here's the generator. And I'm like, no, that's not a generator.
A generator
It
is a
doesn't-
gas generator that you put gas into, put fuel into it. The engine turns. It creates an electrical field that you can run other devices with. That's a generator. You're
Yeah.
generating an electrical field. It doesn't store it. A gas generator will not store anything, right? It has to be running.
Correct.
Where you can use that to power a battery bank. Like I like the Goal Zero stuff. There's a lot of great brands out there. And so I have a couple of the Goal Zero battery banks using the proper terms to store some electricity, store some energy. I've got solar panels to charge that with. I've got a generator to temporarily run the refrigerator so we can eat that before I run out of gas, right? That's not a long-term storage thing. So there are things you can do to help prepare yourself on the short term. Long term, definitely solar, wind power. That's long term. That's a much more complicated topic, but there are little things you can do just by having rechargeable flashlights. You got your phone rechargeable that you can recharge during the day and use it at night. So simple things that we can get into really lots of detail at a later date.
Yeah. And like you can start, like solar stuff is expensive. If you get like a dual generator, like I've got a dual generator where it takes propane and it takes gas, and I can run it off either one. If I'm going to store gas, I need to put an additive into that to make sure it stays good. It's called stable, right? Otherwise it's going to go bad and it'll get sludgy at the bottom, and then water, like natural propane doesn't do that. So I've got all these propane tanks, right? You got to have somewhere to store it, but I've got all that taken care of for like $600. And that wasn't that much to invest into that. If I want to get the solar stuff that I'm looking at, it's like $4,000 minimum.
Mhm.
So get what you can now. If you can't get something big, if you can spend $1,000 to get a solar solution, know that, okay, when things go sideways, when power's gone, we use that to run the fridge for a little while, and break out the sun oven or a camp stove and burn and use other fuels to cook your food. So you're not using a microwave, because a microwave will just zap the battery so fast, right?
Mhm.
Use the things that won't take up your precious power, and hurry and eat all the stuff in your food or in your fridge, and leave the pantry alone for a few days.
Absolutely. You gotta prioritize of what's your most important power use. And at night it's going to be lights, right? Especially if you have got kids, right? It's for communications, right? You can't plan on running your refrigerator, right? You can't plan on running your air conditioning, unless you just got a lot of money and you can put it into a system. But like you're saying, Scott, there's great balance in saying, I'm going to pick a small power bank with an appropriate solar panel. And then I'm going to have a small gas generator that I can run my fridge for a couple of days with 20 gallons of gas sitting there. And after your fridge is used, you've got your battery bank that you can charge up every day for a longer term emergency and have the minimal power that you need. But like you're saying, you got to have propane for heat. You got to have wood. You got to have lots of different ways to cook and to heat. But there is a lot of balance in that can be done very, very intelligently and not spend a whole lot of money on that, and instead of overdoing it with a big solar generator or a big gas generator or anything like that. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to chime in on that grid down solutions there.
Now you could even go in and partner in on a bigger system if you needed to, or you can. I have one of those smaller ones that folds open, folds out, and it can charge my laptop in a couple hours in the sun. Yep. So there's
and if you have
things like that you can do easily, and that one's only like $150. So that's not that bad.
And if you have solar on your house, which I know a lot of people do, you can integrate a battery bank into that and a different type of inverter. Where right now you probably only have a grid tie inverter, and that's still going to be a pretty significant investment, but you already got the panels up there. Might as well have some batteries to complement it, and you got a great source of power.
One of the cool things about most of the battery banks that they have now is you can plug them into the wall and charge them, right? So if you've got solar on your house, you can just plug it right into the wall and it'll charge off the solar, or it'll charge off the grid. And then if the grid's gone and your solar is still charging your house during the middle of the day, you've got all that. Well, you might as well save everything you can under the battery, and then at night it powers your lights. It
Mhm.
powers your heater. It powers whatever you need.
It just takes some
So-
planning and some,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So any situation you're in, you could find a way to make it work. Like even a terracotta pot and some Walmart tea candles. I mean, those things, the 3-hour candles, I was watching a report on it. They burn for 4. Lady had one burn for 4, the other one burned for 4 hours and 15 minutes and 20 something seconds. Like there's ways you can do things to create additional heat in cold weather. Like there's affordable ways to do things is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
You've just got to find what works for you. If you're living in an apartment, space is an issue. If you live in a grand sprawling home, your bigger issue is going to be maintaining that thing when the grid goes down, right? And you're going to wish you had a little apartment and less space to try to heat or cool or manage, right? So do what you can with what you have. That's our motto, right? As preppers, like we're going back to the Great Depression. One of the most famous quotes that my grandma would give us all the time from the Great Depression: use it up, wear it out, make it do,
Or do
or
without.
do without.
Yeah.
Love it.
So there's always something you can do. There's always something that you can reuse or repurpose. Like get creative in your preps. And the more you do that, the more you're going to be able to adapt and overcome. So with that,
Absolutely.
do you guys have any final thoughts before we sign off for the day?
Well, do we want to try and touch on what I was mentioning about? I know we're running out of time, but on my biggest concern on society and such. We want to try and
Absolutely.
touch on
You wanna
that. Or
close
we want
off
to
with
save that
that?
for another. Yeah, let's try and do this as quickly as possible. It's probably a bigger topic than any of the ones we've discussed so far, and it's something that weighs on my mind every single day. And like Scott started out saying, is that let's address the elephant in the room, right? And for me, the elephant in the room is the our collapsing society. And it's not all at once, it's by 1,000 different cuts, right? It's a dozen, a million different little things that are imperceptible over time, unless you're able to see the big picture, right? You're able to see, if you're trying to conform and to go with the flow and compete with the Joneses, keep up with the Joneses. You're trying to follow the trends. You're trying to fit in. You're not going to see it, right? Because you're going along with it. And so it's all these little things. And I don't want to get into all the little things because, again, that would take us hours
Maybe
to discuss.
Maybe let's make that a whole show.
That could be a whole show
Because
just about a collapsing society.
I mean, you can get into so many different layers of that. And I think
Mhm.
we have to. I think we have to make it a whole show.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but let me just touch on a few things, that have been on my
Yeah.
mind that have been really troubling me, because this is really, and I guess I say troubling because certain things I see affecting my family and my kids, and my immediate brothers and sisters, those who I love, who are around me, that it's just part of their life. They've adopted these things, and for me, it's a big red flag, big red light, big alarm going off that man, I'm worried about this person because their views are changing. They're conforming to what the World Economic Forum, these big 3-letter agencies, these big world organizations are spewing. And I use the word spew because it's awful, right? We associate that word with vomiting, with something disgusting. And it is absolutely disgusting to me. And I know that if I touch on some of these topics, it will offend some people, right? It will offend because they've adopted some of these things. And I think you're right. We should take a whole show and touch on these as delicately as possible. But I mean, just look at what happened just this week in Hollywood. With the slap. That's a whole show almost by itself. And I see some of my own family buying into that. And, again, I'm just going to say, I think it was fake. It was rehearsed. Anyway, all these little things, the words we hear, new normal, right? The new normal. This is the new normal. So accept it. Just give in. Just become part of it. Assimilate, right? No, I'm not going to do that, because that's what they, we always use that word they, and don't specify who they are, but between us, we know who they are, right?
Mhm.
And those, I think, hopefully, who are listening to us know what I'm referring to, who I'm referring to. But it's the group think, right? The individual is the most persecuted class on the planet, right? The individual is what our Constitution, our rights were based around, not the group. We're not a democracy. This is not a democracy. It never has been. It's not addressed in the Constitution. And everything is done. We need to save our democracy. We need to share democracy. We're going into this country to protect democracy. That is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner, right? That is what democracy is. It is mob rule. So that word democracy shouldn't have anything to do with anybody's vocabulary. And again, it makes me ill when people use these words in such a favorable light. We need to do this, we need to do that to improve our society, when it's just turning our society downward. And
they're creating
it's a cancer.
They're creating a scenario that doesn't exist to force an agenda that they're trying to make everything their way. And as prepared-minded individuals, as ready-minded people, it is our job to see through that and to watch for that. And that's why we do this show, guys. That's why we have our social media. That's why we're trying to share as much as we can. And unfortunately, I would love to keep going, but we are out of time for today. But I want to thank you guys for being here, for listening, for being part of the discussion, because a lot of the content we talk about on every show is content we get from you on our social media channels. So please continue to interact with us, continue to engage. Check out preppertalkradio.com. We've got links there to all the things we talked about today. Make sure you join our Facebook group. Go to preppertalkradio.com, click on join the group on there, click on join the group there under the resource page, and you'll be in. Like, it's that easy. So stick with us, stay with us, and until next time, stay ready-minded.
Amen. Take care.
Amen.